Tesla should, we should have widespread robotaxi. That'll be a big thing for Tesla in 26. Optimus 3 will launch, and then hopefully SpaceX will achieve full reusability with Starship. Those are pretty giant ones.
Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis, for the last Electrified episode of 2025. David Moss will go down in history as the first person to drive coast to coast fully autonomously in a Tesla. He left the Tesla diner in LA 2 days and 20 hours ago and landed in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a 2,732-mile trip. This on FSD 14.2 with absolutely zero disengagements of any kind, even for all parking, including at superchargers. Here is the route map that he shared with all stops along the way. And if you go to the Whole Mars leaderboard, you will find David Moss's Model 3 at 10,890 miles, 100%, a true 100% on FSD. And there are more reasons than one why people like Ashok are congratulating David and inherently themselves on this achievement. Only longtime Tesla fans will remember this. Back around October 2016 was the first time Elon came out and publicly said Tesla was working on a coast-to-coast drive, fully self-driving. The goal at the time, late 2017. Elon's actual quote, "Our goal is, and I feel pretty good about this goal, we'll be able to do a demonstration drive of full autonomy all the way from LA to New York, from home in LA to, let's say, dropping you off in Times Square in New York, and then having the car go park itself by the end of next year, without the need for a single touch, including the charger." So the idea was set in motion in 2016. The goal at the time was 2017. And as it turns out, we had to wait until the very end of 2025, and it was a customer getting this done, not officially from Tesla. But I would make the argument it might be even cooler letting it happen this way. Andre Karpathy commented on it, saying, "This one is special because the coast-to-coast drive was a major goal for the autopilot team from the start. A lot of hours were spent in marathon clip review sessions late into the night looking over interventions as we attempted legs of the drive over time. Triaging, categorizing, planning out all the projects to close the gap and bring the number of interventions to zero." As Phil Duan said, 10 years in the making. And David Moss in a customer car with a production release of the software is the one to bring it home. And as I said, to everybody that still thinks Waymo is ahead of Tesla, when's the last time a Waymo drove coast to coast by itself? The answer is it hasn't, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So I think it's wise to use this talking point in conversations with the skeptics to explain the differences between these two systems. And listen to this, perhaps the best part of this whole story. In David's bio, he has LiDAR salesman, and I think a lot of people would expect that to be a joke. However, he confirmed on X by saying, "I sell LiDAR scanners for land surveying applications." Meaning a LiDAR salesman was the first person to drive coast to coast in a Tesla in a vision-only system. What's that Elon always loves to say? The most entertaining outcome is the most likely? Well, I think there's something to that. I think many people will overlook this, especially those that have never driven coast to coast. I drove from the East Coast to Tempe, Arizona, where I lived for a year after college, and I remember that drive well. It was long, and it took me 3 days. And for David to not intervene once to adjust a park job at a supercharger is pretty special. So this one's going to be painful for the skeptics. Fred Lambert is clearly panicking already, and I know many others are as well. So yeah, Tesla still has things to iron out, but something like this would not be possible if we weren't on the precipice of our autonomous future. So while the robotaxi rollout has been slower than many expected, I do think 2026 is setting up to be better than many are expecting. I don't want to let expectations get out of control. There are plenty of other channels to help you do that. But I do think this is such a beautiful and serendipitous way for Tesla to wrap 2025. And Oliver Cameron, the CEO at Odyssey Machine Learning, said 5 years later, and I think Tesla has legit cracked FSD. Tried the latest version today, and it was genuinely flawless, and I critique every detail of anything self-driving. Not only flawless, but it drove smoother and safer than any human I know. Very impressed. Elon said he would stop meddling in politics, but perhaps he meant in a more formal role like Doge because he's still posting about it all the time. And I know a lot of you are just as upset and frustrated as I am with the continuous uncovering of fraud in our government seemingly everywhere we look. Of the over 330 news outlets reporting on the FBI's response to the Minnesota daycare fraud, only 42 outlets lean left compared to 100 leaning right. You have headlines on the left finding ways to mention Trump, and you'll see Somalis aren't mentioned at all. And it's only the headlines on the right-leaning sources mentioning anything about Somali involvement. But my point here is everything is propagandized, and if we're not careful, the InfoWars are going to destroy the fabric of society, which is why I'm such a big advocate for Ground News, the sponsor of this video. Ground News gathers articles from around the world so you can see political bias and compare coverage instantly. Every story comes with a breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership of the sources reporting, and all ratings are backed by 3 independent news monitoring organizations. There are dashboards that track your consumption so you can spot your own reading habits at a glance, and the blind spot feature shows which stories are being underreported by either side. It really has helped me to stay informed with far less time and with far more accuracy. So if you want to support the channel, you can get 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use for unlimited access, and if you still need to find a gift for someone, you can gift a Ground News Vantage subscription at the discounted rate as well. It's ground.news/electrified, or you can use the QR code on the screen. And for me, I've only had a few hours with the latest 14.2.2.2, but I tested it heavily in parking lots as many noted regressions with the prior build. So far so good. Most of the lots were covered in snow, which complicates things, and nearly every time the car handled it really well. There was this time where the car parked a bit too close to another car where the truck owner would struggle to get into their car if I didn't move, but the truck was completely over the line, so situations like this are where we need some reasoning. I will say though, there were multiple instances where FSD went past open parking spots that were handicap or pickup only, so that was definitely encouraging. And almost every park I had was in one shot, except for this one, which was so weird and brings me to Tesla's glaring problem: the map situation. I had McDonald's in the navigation, which was about 2 minutes away from this parking lot. The nav was set, but the car just circled in this parking lot, choosing to park here twice, nowhere near McDonald's, not even close to the same parking lot. The navigation was plugged in, but the car disregarded it and just chose to park here. Which brings me to what I want to mention. Tesla uses the map UI from Google Maps, but it's actually using OpenStreetMaps or OSM and Valhalla for routing and map data. So the visualizations we see, like the street names and the 3D buildings, are from Google Maps everywhere except China, where Tesla is partnered with Baidu, but the turn-by-turn directions and the path calculations use a different backend, which as far as we know is still primarily Valhalla and OSM. And to my knowledge, both of these are open source. So certain features like parking lots or road geometry are from OSM. And with version 14, Tesla is incorporating the neural net into the navigation and allowing it to override the map data based on what the cameras see, which sometimes works, but other times it does not. It can be great in dynamic situations like construction, but it's introduced regressions in some otherwise basic, easy situations. And then small things like navigating from a parking space like this, the car could easily just pull forward and proceed. But instead, the car chose to back up, having to deal with a pedestrian and blocking another car that was waiting for me to move. And then this parking lot, which was very tight and busy, resulted in FSD just freezing up. It was backing up, but then things got close and it just stopped. I let it sit there for about 30 seconds, but it was blocking the entire lot, so I got on the accelerator and then it proceeded, but it went on to miss the exit of the parking lot and had to then reverse its way out. Which it did, but you have to wonder, was this a routing camera mismatch that has caused so many problems with these recent builds? As I always say, not safety critical problems, but problems nonetheless. But overall, the driving itself in my few hours was great, handling snow really well and no problems at all with normal driving. But I certainly hope Tesla can address the routing problems with 14.3 and can clean up the parking lot behavior further, even though it does seem like 14.2.2.2 is a nice step forward in that department. And as we exit 2025, I love this chart from Tesla Chan showing that we started 2025 on FSD version 12.6. And now exiting the year on 14.2.2.2, at least for AI4, just talking about the most advanced build. But throughout the year in 2025, we actually had less updates than we did in 2024. And in an attempt to keep today's episode short for all of those with New Year's Eve plans, I'll just reiterate what Elon said. Great work by the Tesla team in 2025, and 2026 will be epic. The Model 3 standard is now following in the Model Y standard's footsteps in the Edmunds real-world range test. The Model 3 standard just went 339 miles, which is 18 miles over the EPA estimate of 321. On the Edmunds test, the Model 3 standard's battery used 23 kilowatt hours of energy per 100 miles of driving, which was slightly better than the EPA projected 24 kilowatt hour rating. So Tesla has clearly become more cautious with its EPA range estimates to closely align with real-world performance. So if anybody tries to argue with outdated data, you can now counter with these tests from Edmunds, a publication that certainly has no favoritism for Tesla, and historically, it's been the opposite. And just so you know, Edmunds does this test with a strict route made up of 60% city and 40% highway driving, with an average speed of 40 miles per hour. DHL just came out and said that they expect to add multiple Tesla semi-tractors to its US Class 8 fleet in the coming 12 months. DHL has more than just a handful of trucks on order with Tesla, and they said we can't wait to put them into operation. Deliveries are expected to begin from the second half of 2026 onward. DHL also wants to operate these Tesla semi-tractors outside of California, noting Ohio and Pennsylvania as possibilities. DHL said 150 trucks is not the end of our story. We want to scale it up even more. So this just confirms that DHL will be buying more Tesla semis. But in case you missed this news last time around, this was after the pilot covered more than 3,000 miles of regular routes, where the Tesla Semi averaged 1.72 kilowatt hours per mile, while hauling a gross combined weight of over 75,000 pounds over a 390-mile long-haul route. DHL said our pilot of the Tesla Semi exceeded expectations, proving its ability to efficiently haul a typical DHL freight over long distances on a single charge. The Semi allows us to step into opportunities and businesses that we could not step into previously. We can cover much more with our fleet. And as we've known, Tesla has been continuing to improve on the design of the Tesla Semi, and we got a look at the latest, potentially production-ready version, thanks to Heinrich Zane.
Most of the improvements that they have incorporated into the refreshed Tesla Semi are actually not visible from the exterior. There's a vast amount of improvements on the bones of the Tesla Semi. That could be as much as the inverters, the bus bars, the batteries themselves on this Tesla Semi may be 4680s. And I do know that that's the direction they're going. I was surprised. I thought they would continue to use 2170s for a long time because those 2170s work well. And my understanding of the 4680 was that its benefit was especially realized in a structural battery pack. And there's no such thing on the Tesla Semi. You can see it's charged and it's plugged in and charging. I can see at least one cable on the charging stall next to it.
And then the Tesla Semi account put out this video saying engineers hitting 1.2 megawatts on the Semi Mega Charger.
15, 16, 124, 193, 271, 351, 430, 525, 628, 738, 851, 981, 1111.
Oh yes, nice.
1206. Woohoo!
Don't shake.
And I think most of you know, but just in case, 1.2 megawatts is indeed 1,200 kilowatts. So nearly 5 times faster than the typical 250 kilowatts many of us are used to. But of course, a big question remains: what will the charging curve look like? And don't forget, Tesla has said that the Semi and the Cybercab will be using 4680s. And the 4680 packs have received some critiques when it comes to the charging curve. Tesla Charging clarified that's 1.2 megawatts with a true V4 cabinet. And Dan Priestley was asked if this was on a V4 supercharger with the MCS plug or on a version 1 Semi supercharger. To which Dan Priestley said the Semi charger is a V4 system. Semi and passenger cars leverage the same cabinet and post design with minimal differences such as cable and connector. Common components and assembly line mean lower cost, greater reliability, and aligned field service. So to be clear, Tesla Semi charging is on the same V4 system when it comes to the cabinets powering the stalls and the stalls themselves, aka the post design, as we saw in the Heinrich Zane video. So the only difference is for the Tesla Semi, it'll use a different cable to handle that type of power, and it'll use a different adapter or connector. So the Tesla Semi will not be using the North American charging standard. And this is a picture of the Tesla Semi charging port that is set to go into production. Dan Priestley said the connector on the prior Semi was an early version 2.4 of MCS, otherwise known as the megawatt charging system. So even Tesla's prior version was not proprietary, meaning anyone could have used it. But Dan said we could not wait for the final design to have over 1 megawatt capability, so we ran with what had been developed thus far. The new Semi has the latest megawatt charging standard that is set to be standard. So hopefully any and all electric semis in the future will also adopt this MCS port design. Hopefully everybody learns from the NACS and CCS and CHAdeMO, that whole debacle for years on the consumer side, and let's simplify, streamline, and standardize on the commercial side. And according to Dan, it sounds like that's exactly what's going to happen. And I have to say, I'm so excited for this to get out into the wild and to see sales figures and the demand, because there will be no brand damage impact here. It's all about cost per mile and efficiency and reliability, and that's where Tesla shines. And that means Tesla is going to dominate this segment once production begins to ramp in 2026, and that has been confirmed with that pre-order data we covered about 2 weeks back. Tesla Asia shared Tesla's 9 millionth vehicle globally has rolled off the production line at Giga Shanghai. And a pretty wild fun fact to add to this, it took Tesla over 12 years to go from the first Roadster deliveries in 2008 to building car number 1 million in March 2020. Fast forward to today, and Tesla's making about 1 million cars about every 7 months. And then for Tesla to go from 8 million to 9 million, it was only 207 days. And 1 million cars divided by 207 days works out to 4,830 cars made every day. And one of those vehicles just did a fully autonomous coast-to-coast drive, which is why I am uber confident saying 2026 will finally be the year the floodgates open for robotaxi deployment. As Elon said, the Model Y is now officially the world's best-selling car of any type for the 3rd year in a row. And we know it's not the most affordable vehicle out there, which just goes to show how good of a car it really is. Tesla has cut the prices of some vehicles in Korea, some by as much as $6,500 ahead of the new year, a move widely seen as an effort to cement its position as the country's top-selling imported car brand. Tesla's decision reflects a broader global slowdown in EV demand, as well as an expected lull in the domestic market before government EV subsidies are finalized. Elon said xAI bought a 3rd building called Macro Halter, will take xAI training compute to almost 2 gigawatts. And don't worry, we'll talk a lot more about this in the new year. I'll send you guys off with Tesla's recap video of 2025, but before I do, there's some wording in the video about Cybercab starting production, but Elon clarified just testing the production system. Real production ramp starts in April. This, of course, talking about the Cybercab. So don't forget to check out Ground News linked below for those interested. And it's just a fact that all of you checking out sponsors is how I can continue to run this channel. So I cannot thank you all enough. So go enjoy New Year's with your people or alone for all of my introverts, and I cannot wait to cover 2026, which is going to be the year of I told you so for a lot of us. Stay safe out there, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.
You know, when we started Tesla, the goal was to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy, and that's what we've done. We need to update our mission, which is to achieve sustainable abundance.